Technical hitch. Right, welcome back everybody to a brand new video, and today I'm going to touch on a subject because I just have the opportunity that currently I have 3 branches all in the key of G, 3 branch flutes rather. And so I want to talk about the differences of those branches and how you might be able to connect to your individual flute a bit more closely, a bit more personally, and actually get to know your flute a little bit better, and therefore find its unique character, its unique song. There's a big difference for me personally. I mean, I don't have a machine-made lathe-turned flute to demonstrate this with, but I have bought numerous over the years, but have sold them all on. And although they're all valid, this is not one is better than the other. There is a great difference between the two, and that the main difference is the character is purposefully, because it has to deliver a certain criteria with each sill. There has to be a uniform sound and a uniform feel and a uniform quality when you're making machine-made flutes. So everybody expects to get what it says on the tin, so to speak, to receive something from a well-known brand and to know what quality that they can expect and what and that it's finely tuned and concert tuned or whatever the case may be. But the difference between that and, say, a branch flute is that a branch flute comes with more quirks, more. It's not an exact science when you're making a flute, and it's not an exact science when you're playing, because all of these little different quirks and these different sounds and these different with all the different woods and the different shapes and different contours and different handmade sound mechanisms. There's just so many variables in there that it's more about embracing each unique character than it is receiving and playing something that plays as standard and you know what you're getting, you know. And so we're going to seize the opportunity of these 3 branch flutes to kind of just run you through that a little bit more, and then we're going to go a little bit woo-woo at the end, and we're going to talk a little bit about drums and how they might be relevant with the spirit of flute. So here are, should I say, 3 different branch flutes. This one I've just finished. Oversized, over length, so effectively this is the end of the flute here, and all of this is really just being left because it's the spirit or the character of the branch itself. So this one first, this one I've just finished for somebody who requested a swallow flute. So this one is made out of silver birch, and you can see it's been caught by the weather there underneath the bark, which I knew would turn quite black. Actually, once I'd finished it with oil, it needs one more coat of oil, this one, to be honest, and we got the picture of swallows on there as well. So very different to the first one. And if we can just ignore the fact that this is actually a drone flute, this is one that I purchased a long time ago, but this is the perfect flute to demonstrate with. When I first received this flute, I thought, what on earth is this in comparison to all the flutes I had? What on earth is this little kind of little pea shooter thing? It sucks. It's only in the key of G, and yet it's sucking all this air out as if it was a really low B bass flute or something, you know. But over time and with experience, I learned that actually that's just the uniqueness of the spirit of this that I hadn't engaged with at all. And if you do embrace with and embrace the nature of any flute that you receive, it's actually calling, in my opinion, for it to be played in a slightly different way. They don't all want to be picked up and play exactly the same improv or exactly the same sheet music through every single flute all the time. They have their unique characters and they're to be explored, embraced, loved, and that will give you more dynamic within your own playing as you seek to engage with each flute that you might be lucky enough to own or keep rather, and to navigate that journey with each one and truly try and listen to what the flute actually is all about. So this one, I said, takes the breath out of you, and yes, it really does. And so for a quick example of that, or a quick explanation of that, it just really tells me that it wants to be played in shorter phrases. It's pretty obvious. If it's drawing the breath out of you, if it takes a lot of air to play, then you are naturally forced to play shorter phrases or shorter sounds with it. Less notes per breath, basically, is what I'm saying there. Otherwise, you just run out of breath. So if you just try and play long phrases, you run out of breath. It sounds terrible. Embrace the fact that it just wants shorter phrases, and then it allows its beautiful, sweet, sweet voice to shine through. It sounds very airy as well. Not all Native American style flutes do sound airy, but sometimes I actually like to purposely make mine sound airy, and that is actually influenced by this flute too, because it just sounds beautiful, it sounds quirky, and to many, many ears out there it sounds imperfect. But in actual fact, that's just bags of character for me. I like the airy sound of rim-blown flutes like shakuhachi, or side-blown flutes like bansuri or something like that. You know, there's a lot more airiness about the sound of something that has a more simple mechanism to it, that you have to create an embouchure to enable to make a sound anyway. And so this kind of emulates that to a certain degree, but again, it's just a unique characteristic of this flute. And a quick example is again, this one has a much, much louder voice. Typically on the top notes of this, the two highest notes, and you can see you're playing on the edge of things there as well, which is a really good thing. And I know in the first few videos that I made were purposely for beginners, but as we begin to progress on our flute journey, then we use breath control to our advantage, and we're really playing on the edge of our flute's capabilities to create more drama, more atmosphere. And so when you have a flute like this that wants to be played loudly at the top, explore that. How far can you push it to create more drama in your playing? Because yes, you could be safe, or you can really push it because the flute allows it. It wants to play loudly on those top notes, so embrace it. Probably overemphasizing things. And don't forget also, when you've played for a few minutes and you've begun to warm up, and you know, you got the intention or the attention of everybody that's listening, and you yourself are diving deeper into the music, that's when to deliver these things, you know. It's not something that you would probably start off with immediately, other than the intro, of course, where you can add impact. So this one, again, much thicker walls on this flute, a much narrower bore size as well, quieter, much quieter flute. So I've only been with this one 5 minutes, literally just finished this today, but it has a beautiful muted tone. Let me try and just play just the scale from the bottom up to the top, just to clearly demonstrate how different that these sound, even though they're exactly the same key. The three of them couldn't be more different, to be honest. And so let's get back to the beginning. You receive your flute through the post, wherever you've bought it from. It's not a plug. But particularly in the realms in which we are all familiar, the more kind of spiritual circles, and I'm quite aware that most of my flutes are sold amongst those circles, at least at the moment. And so you'll be well aware, most people watching this, that this beautiful shamanic drum, which is part of my practice behind me, perhaps one or two, if not many of you, have a similar drum at home, or, and a lot of you may have even birthed that yourself, that drum. You may have gone along to a workshop or on your own, and you may have connected with spirit. And when we do so in a shamanic perspective, even if you haven't made your own drum and you've got somebody to make yours for me like I do, beautiful lady called Karen makes my drums for me. Thoroughly recommend her. Maybe I'll get a little link for her down in the comments of YouTube as well, or in the description. But when we receive our drum, what do we do? The first thing we do is we connect with our drum, and from a shamanic perspective, you're connecting that really to your energy, your heartbeat, but you're also acknowledging and having gratitude for the spirit of the, in this case, horse or the deer, and the rim of the drum, the wood, the tree, mainly ash tree that we make the drum rims from in this country. And so you journey with them in a shamanic perspective to really show gratitude, connect with, and yeah, just asking for that connection and maybe setting an intention. And it's nice to always drop in and acknowledge that. Even briefly before you use that drum then for any work or for any music. It's just a case like anything in shamanic, on our shamanic path or spiritual path. It's just having a little bit more thought, a little bit more presence with everything that we're connected with, and just establishing that connection, deepening that connection, acknowledging that connection with everything that we have, because everything has a spirit. And so the same applies for me and flutes. So you may not have heard this before, but for a long time it's been my practice to connect with the spirit of the flute and ask the spirit of the flute for any guidance as well, and just listen as well, and just becoming more in tune with it in your own way. I get very visual journeys when I connect with spirit, so I get shown a lot of things, and my own spirit will appear in front of me as well as the snake, as per my kind of logo thing, or symbol. And the snake will either rise or fall in front of me, and it'll show me where to go on the scale basically, or it will almost demonstrate the kind of energy to push through the flute at that time, for the collective that I might be, holding space for, or something like that, Now, I'm not saying that has to be the same for all of us at all. It's just the way that things have unraveled for me. But connecting in your own way, however you connect with anything else, and throughout your practices, I'm sure that you do connect and give time and appreciation and honour to whatever maybe you're using, you're burning herbs or incense or anything like that, or you're placing things into a fire. We're just being a bit more mindful, and we're connecting with things. It's the same with flute. Now, how can you say that these three flutes in the key of G are just a musical instrument when they're so beautiful, unique, different, have their own character or spirit, name it how you will? They all want to be played together. They all want to be played the way that they're meant to be played. They all have unique characteristics. They all have a unique voice, a unique sound, a unique energy, and they'll play very, very differently. And if you learn to listen to that a little bit more, you'll be able to get the best out of every flute that you have. And that does not mean playing them all exactly the same. This is a really, really good thing. I'm hoping this isn't complicating things for people, but it's a really exciting thing, I think, to be able to think, right, okay, if we could think along these lines, we can get the best out of every flute. It just broadens our whole experience with flute, takes us off in different directions, and it's just honouring the spirit of things, which is the kind of path that we're all on. There was something else that I was going to say about this, and it's just left me. I waffled on a little bit too long at the end there. and distracted myself. I'm really, really good at that. I'll try and get back around to it. Well, let's just talk a little bit about machine-made flutes. So this is not to diminish how amazing machine-made flutes are. They are phenomenal. For me, they're very precise instruments. They're very uniform. You can, I don't know, like they wet out a little bit more often. I make my flutes so they don't do that as much. So there are a little annoyances out there, but for me they are, to be honest, in comparison to branch flutes, they're a little bit bland. This is the reason that I stopped playing them, or stopped keeping them for myself and sold all of mine. Because if I was to stay with the same brand, for example, but had a different key, there was no difference in character other than the actual key, the depth or the height of each note. They sounded like the same flute in a deeper voice, you know? And so there is a lack of character. So what you gain in maybe precision and knowing what you're getting, you lack in character and spirit, in my mind, in my way. And this is not to speak down. They have their place. There are some times that I wish, you know, I did have a little magical kind of machine-made drone that just slot in my bag or something. It's you know, that I didn't have to worry about too much, and didn't feel so precious about it. Yeah, and maybe some things being, I don't know. Yeah, there is definitely advantages, and please, it is up to you and what you resonate with. This is just me, my story, my journey with flutes. But yeah, let me know how you get on. Does this resonate with you, the idea of each branch flute or each flute having its own spirit? Not some of them you might have thought that just doesn't play ball. You may have disregarded, like I did, you may have disregarded a perfectly fine flute. You know, even like quirky flutes that are inexpensively made, perhaps. You know, they can be beautiful little quirky things as well, and just take them for what they are and embrace the spirit that they give you, and just ram it in your bag and not too worry about it too much. But those so-called imperfections in sound can actually be bagfuls of character to be further explored by ourselves, that's for sure. So I would encourage you, with any flute that you may have previously disregarded, to try and embrace some of what you've heard today, and maybe go back to it with a different mindset, and see where you go from there, and listen to the flute. How does it want to be played, rather than how do you want to play it? Thank you very much. I just happen to have all of these G flutes with me today, and I know that the two of those will leave me shortly, but I will be back on next week, and it will be more based around advanced breath control. So what I really wanted to speak into today, actually, but like I said, I had those flutes, was I hinted at it earlier on as well, was playing on the edge of things, exploring the edge of your flute's capabilities. It's within the character of your flute, it's the character of your flute that's giving you that, but you can play with it to add drama. So we'll further dive deeper into that. We'll also speak into vibrato and a few different ways that you can use vibrato. That's when you get towards the end of your phrase, perhaps, and you'll begin to hear the breath going. So it's not just it's a. There's a few different ways that you can achieve that and become more proficient and quicker as you like it. And I also want to speak into trilling as well. So trilling, I do this two different ways, and I'll explain fully each different way for you. You'll more than likely get on with one of them, perhaps not the other. So the first one, second, I'll speak more into the differences, the subtle differences of that. I have much more control over one technique than the other, so I use them accordingly. One when I want to go full on, you know, and the other when I want to retain it a little bit, back off, and maybe have that slower sound effect. So trilling, playing on the edge of your flute, and vibrato, all coming up in the next tutorial. It's an advanced-ish or mediocre kind of, if you like. And it's really things that are really going to help accelerate and take you to a new level of flute playing. So thank you so much for listening to all of that today. Please give me some feedback, and I'd love to know any of your experiences with flute, how you may have disregarded them and maybe it's ended up being your favourite in the end too. Much love.